All right, welcome back. Average Home Theater. I'm Nelson, and once again, I'm joined by the illustrious, the
No,
wise Dominic.
I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, okay, we were supposed to do this around Halloween time. Life got in the way. We
Hmm.
weren't able to do it, but we're doing it now. We're going to talk about 1985, Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
Yep.
And we're on this kind of quest with Stephen King because Dominic here hasn't seen a whole lot, not just Stephen King, but a whole lot of horror, I guess, right?
Right.
That hasn't been
Unless it bled into a different genre.
right,
Right.
sci-fi and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But just straight up kind of horror stuff, he's not he's lacking. He has some catching up to do.
Yep.
And classic stuff, not necessarily new stuff.
Right. Because we've done Cujo.
Yep,
We've done Christine.
yep.
I think there was another one in there too.
No, I think that was it.
Was it just those two? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay.
So Silver Bullet's one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, even though it's one of the few stories that I actually haven't read. I've never read Cycle of
Oh,
the
okay.
Werewolf.
I was gonna say that's the original name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I do want to. But man, I just with everything else that I do, I don't
Hmm.
have time to read. So anyway, before we get too far into it, what'd you think of it? What was your overall thoughts?
I liked it.
Fun, bad?
No, it definitely not bad. It's interesting because it's like there is horror elements to it, but it has like this nice silver bow on it. Like
Ah,
it's
silver.
exactly. No, it was fun. Like at sometimes it feels like a very like warm and fuzzy 1980s little movie, and then sometimes, you have the horror aspects to it, you have a religious aspect to it. Um, and then you have like a moral at the end of the story.
Hmm.
Like it's not just gratuitous at all. It's very there's a message and there's a theme in there. And I appreciated that. It was a lot of fun. I
The
liked it a lot.
werewolf effect wasn't bad for its time.
I loved looking at the werewolf
Hmm.
effects. Yeah. And I'll get to one of my favorite scene with that, but no, I enjoyed it. It was fun. And it kind of starts off a little slow, kind of remind me how Cujo started off a little
Hmm.
bit as
Hmm.
well. Um and you have a voiceover from the girl,
Jane.
Jane,
Hmm.
and she's obviously an older woman at this point, and she's going back and telling you about the last full moon, 1976. This takes place in the
Hmm.
70s, late 70s.
I'm a sucker for movies that are being told like a story.
Oh yeah. Well,
Stand by
it
Me.
brings you in.
Stand by Me, another Stephen King movie
Uh-huh.
like that. Shawshank Redemption. It's
Oh,
Red telling the story. So I don't know. It just sometimes if it's done right, it
right.
adds a little something to it but then it can also take away from it, like Blade Runner. When they
Yeah, and give too
added
much.
Harrison Ford's voiceover
Right.
in post, and when they take it out, the movie's much better.
Right.
So,
No, and I think, if something is if it is a novel, it comes across like that. I like that
hmm.
with the narration.
Well, cool. So I'm glad you enjoyed it
Hmm.
because this movie is considered one of the best werewolf movies out
Okay.
there.
I
I,
always hear about American Werewolf in
in
London. That's like
London,
the one that I always hear.
yeah, that's considered the gold standard.
Right.
It's not my favorite. I
Okay.
watched it and it's good. It's not
Uh-huh.
that it's not good. It's just it has some comedy elements into it and
Okay.
it's very weird. It's kind of weird to me, so you have to get it, I guess.
Okay.
Um, to where this one is pretty much a straight up werewolf movie. Um, not a whole. There is comedy. I mean, Gary Busey's in it.
Okay, that I
Okay,
was like,
that is the big bow. When you tell
yeah,
me, oh, an 80s movie, werewolf movie with Gary Busey, I'm in.
yeah.
Okay,
I
I'm there all the way.
I'm just so used to the crazy Gary Busey and the
Well, he is
memes.
crazy.
Yeah, but in here he's kind of like the drunk uncle, but he has a good heart.
Well, he tries to be the rational one. He's
Yeah,
telling the kid. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that. But
right.
yeah, he's trying to be rational, even though he's the crazy uncle who likes to get sauced
but
He,
he deep down he's a good dude.
right, right. He's a good
Yeah.
guy.
And I, I'm a title guy. I like that. I think this is a better. I mean, yeah, Silver Bullet. It's not that original of a thought because that's something associated with werewolves.
Right.
But the way they use Silver Bullet is not the typical thing. I think the name is better than Cycle of the Werewolf.
Well, it has a double meaning because
Right,
his
because
wheelchair
his
is the
wheelchair
silver
and
bullet.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Which
like
I'm
that.
guessing in the story Cycle of the Werewolf, it's called that. I don't know. Leave a comment if you know.
Hmm.
I'm guessing that the boy's wheelchair was called the Silver Bullet. I don't
Right.
know, or if that's just something for the movie.
No, yeah, and I like the double meaning, like you said, because are you talking about a silver bullet that fire into a werewolf to kill it? But then also that kid is the silver bullet because he's the one that kind of figures it
Mm-hmm.
out. So,
So yeah, so we don't have to explain the synopsis. I would imagine anyone who is watching this has seen the movie.
hmm.
Um, so the opening scene is always in a movie, you want to grab the audience.
Yes.
And what better way to do it than somebody getting their head knocked off,
Yeah.
getting decapitated at the very beginning.
And it's yeah, I that one I was like, oh, okay, because it's a guy doing his night shift.
Right.
He's a drunk.
He's a drunk.
Nobody cares about him, so they kind of dismiss it.
Like it's just, oh, it's so and so, and
Yeah,
oh, he must have gotten, what is it, his head decapitated from
the
being
train.
passed out on the train tracks or
Yeah,
something.
but
Yeah.
they show the head, they show the maggots, and then right as you're gonna see it be crushed, it transitions to a kid smashing a cockroach. So that was pretty clever.
Great.
That
Great stuff.
yeah, that was pretty clever. And watching that beginning, I'm like, okay, because I've seen other stuff, like for example, Scream, and even like the early, like the first couple seasons of Smallville were very horror-esque. They copied a lot, or they got ideas from this because it's kind of like a cold open, a random killing, and then bam, you meet the real characters in the
Mhm.
story. I've seen that in other stuff, but it was probably new here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's 1985.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so I got, we all know Jane is narrating.
Oh, and sorry, one thing. King did the screenplay. His name is listed in
Oh,
the
oh
credits
yeah,
on the
yeah.
screenplay, so I thought that was cool.
A lot of his, especially early adaptations are like that,
That's cool. It
where
it
he
adds
he
more
writes
credence to it.
he writes the screenplay. Yeah. Um. So what do I have here in my notes? Oh yeah, the station wagon. That is the exact station wagon that we had when I was a kid.
That's awesome.
Ford LTD station wagon, baby. That's the
1980s.
first vehicle I ever drove. When I
Wow.
was of driving age, we still had one.
Dang.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, white with wood grain.
Uh-huh.
Wood.
The wood grain was
Oh
big.
man, you can fit a lot of people in there.
Uh-huh.
We wouldn't
Early,
wear seat belts at the back. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
yeah. And the cars were wider and they were more boxy and sturdier. Yeah.
That's great stuff.
Oh
If I
yeah.
had the money,
Uh-huh.
I would definitely get one and restore it. And if you've ever seen the movie The Way, Way Back,
Uh-huh.
Steve Carell's character has a station wagon from when he was a kid, and it's like completely restored.
Wow.
And the reason he bought it is because, oh man,
Nostalgic.
right, this is the car that we had when I was growing up. So he bought it and he fully restored it. So I
That's
would
cool.
definitely do that if I had the cheddar. I just
All
don't.
right. Well, you heard it,
So
guys.
maybe this YouTube channel needs to like
Yep.
take off. Yeah, okay.
Get Nelson his station wagon.
So anyway, so what do you got?
Oh, so that we talked about that first killing, and then it kind of transitions to like the town fair and stuff. And they have the Mayor Goldie Wilson music. That's something I
Dun, dun,
picked.
dun, dun,
Yeah, I don't
dun.
know if it's unique to that but
No, I don't think so. I
that's
think it's
that's where I was like, that's just like Mayor
oh
Goldie Wilson.
that's a normal
Well, I've only heard it in Back to the
oh
Future.
okay, no,
If
that's
I
a normal tune. That's
Okay,
a patriotic type tune. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, that's
okay.
I've heard that many
Well,
times.
that
Yeah.
that brought me back there, and then you learn so it's Jane and her brother. Um, his name is What is it,
I don't know. It's
Marty or
Corey
something?
Haim.
Yeah,
Um,
which is another 80s little
right. I don't even.
signpost. And he's messing with his buddy Brady, and that dude is a jerk. That kid. They make her slip in the mud and scare her and all that with the snake and all that kind of
He
stuff.
feels bad about it though.
Hmm.
He didn't like doing that.
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
25 cents for a pantyhose.
Right. And that girl, man, I mean, I think the takeaway from those early scenes is the character development of that she has it rough.
Hmm.
You know, the sister, she has to watch over her brother, who her brother,
Physically disabled.
yeah, he's disabled, so he gets around in a little cart and stuff, and you know, they're at this fair, and you kind of learn a little bit about, you know, who they are and what they're doing. And, you know, it's a small town. I like all that part of it,
Hmm.
how it's,
Hmm.
you know, it's a small 1980s town. It really feels like it is.
The law enforcement is not equipped to deal with stuff like that. They
Yeah,
start having the murders, and the sheriff doesn't really know what to do. I mean, he knows what needs to be done. They don't have the
yeah.
resources to do it. Um,
And he's the guy, the guy that plays the sheriff. I was like, man, I know him from somewhere.
Lost.
Yes, he's John Locke in Lost, but
Hmm.
he's way younger here.
Oh yeah, he's in a ton of stuff, man. I
Yeah,
mean, Young Guns, Tombstone. I mean, you could go on and on. The guy's got a resume a mile long.
yeah, he does. And, you know, kind of calling back to what inspired, like, you know, the town and the sheriff, and it's got a little bit of Stranger Things kind of reminded
Hmm.
me
Hmm.
of that, you know, how that is all
Well,
set up.
it's kind of like Jaws,
That
that
too.
the chief was not prepared to deal with the
Right.
shark. It's kind of like this, like what's going on. One thing I did write down, the some of the kills are like very like scary.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one you really see, of course, the head knocking off, but I have it written down. It's the POV shots, obviously, because they don't show the monster until the
Right.
very end, which always works. The less you see the monster, the better, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Especially werewolf. That is so hard to pull off. Like I feel like a vampire is way easier to pull off. It's a little more realistic, you
mhm,
know?
mhm.
But a werewolf, like I credence to them because that's hard to pull off.
And this one, when he killed the pregnant girl, that was brutal. The
Yes.
it's he just rips her to shreds in the bedroom, and the mom hears all the screaming, and then she goes and she grabs a gun, but by the time she gets up there,
Uh-huh.
it's all over. And just it's a horrible thing to think about, but as a parent, if you were to hear that and walk upstairs and you see that, I mean, how
Especially in
horrible
the
is that?
house.
Yeah,
You know, it's one thing to come upon something that happened outside of the
yeah.
house. You
And the
think you're
poor,
safe.
and I say pregnant girl because didn't she had approached, or she cornered the guy who was apparently a married man, and she told him
Right.
I'm pregnant, and he's like, well, it's
He's
not
like,
my
get,
problem, that type
yeah.
of thing. So she was trying to commit suicide anyway,
Which,
and then the werewolf goes in there and kills her.
yeah, and that comes into effect later.
Correct.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that you're right. That was very brutal. And then the next killing, it was the drunk father, right? The jerk that was watching the game. He was mean to his
Yes,
family and
his
all that.
friend, the girl that's Corey Haim's friend, her
Right.
dad, the abusive kind of dad,
Yeah.
he keeps hearing a noise in the shed or whatever. He goes
Uh-huh.
out there and like, doesn't he pull him through the floor? He gets pulled through the
Yeah,
floor.
it's a
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
kill too. Yeah.
Hmm.
But they kind of offset it. Like you didn't really feel bad for the
No, you
guy at
don't
the
feel bad for
beginning.
him.
And you know, but they kind of some of
Oh, I
them,
see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, they kind of switch it off. You know, you feel really bad for the pregnant girl, but with him you didn't because they already kind of set him up that he was a bad dude. And then we kind of meet Gary Busey around this time as he's
Uncle
drinking
Red,
wild
huh?
turkey or something all the
No, no,
time,
not
or
his, not
liquor.
Red. What's his name?
Um,
Man, all the notes I wrote down, I didn't write down Gary Busey's name. But anyway,
he's Gary Busey.
um, he what do
He's
I have here?
well, he's trying to like.
No, it is Uncle Red.
Oh, his name is Uncle
Yeah,
Red.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well
Okay.
there you go. Well, he's trying to, you know, spend time with his nephew and, you know, find some kind of commonality with him. He's playing cards with him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the mom, you know, is like,
Inappropriate
yeah,
conversations while he's drunk.
yeah, and he's a lot of like innuendos and stuff and the
Mm-hmm.
things he says. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if that one your kid, you think it's hilarious, but if that is your kid he's talking to, you'd be like, hey, stop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uncle
Uncle
Red.
Red,
Yeah,
nice.
okay. So I'm not crazy when I wrote it down. Yeah.
Well, not as scary as Gary Busey is now, unfortunately. He's more than just memes, folks.
Yeah.
But he's a you know he's generally a good dude here. You know he's got some issues. He's got a drinking problem. He's kind of never succeeded in life, but you know he
He has
identifies
a
with the
good heart,
kids. Yeah,
and he connects with the
yeah, because he
kids.
doesn't have to be hanging out with the kids. I'm sorry if he has a couple beers, you
Hmm.
know, doing it. Um, so from there. we also meet uh the preacher and the church
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, you see, so after the dad is killed or the drunk guy, the
Hmm.
next is the little boy Brady.
The kid that was
Yeah, the
his
little
buddy.
kid, his friend
Yeah.
Brady gets killed, and the sheriff finds him at the gazebo in the park, and
Hmm.
he played that part really well. Like
Oh, the
he was
father?
no, the sheriff before the father gets there,
Oh, gotcha,
and he
gotcha.
finds
Yes.
the body, and
Uh-huh.
he's just like he's like he has to sit down and whatnot.
Yeah. And you don't that's one that they don't show you.
Yeah,
You
well,
see like the blood on the kite, I
hmm
think, or something. But yeah,
it's
the
like a yellow
shock,
kite.
yeah, the shock on his face and the shock on his dad. Like his
Yeah.
dad is the acting of who ever played his dad, like he looks forever messed up.
Hmm.
And you really read that off his face.
Stephen King likes to kill kids, man. That dude has a lot of kids die in his shows
Yeah, you're
or his
right.
stories. I mean, of course, he has a
Well,
lot of people die, period.
and a lot of his stories center around kids on a mystery.
Hmm.
Again, Stranger Things got some of that from there.
So the first time you see the Reverend is at the boy's funeral.
Okay, yes. And that's when is that when they're singing like Amazing Grace and like
Yeah,
they got like hymns going, very like old school.
but it's weird because all of his little sermons are strange. Like
Yeah, like riddles.
you know from the beginning that he's weird.
Yeah, you
Um,
definitely, and he's got a weird look.
and I can remember as a kid, um, after rewatching it, thinking like, man, the whole it just it hits different knowing that
Mm-hmm.
the Reverend or the preacher or whatever he is.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, you should know this. You're watching him. Um, is the werewolf, you know? And
Yes.
as a kid, just I don't know. It's one of those things that always just stuck with me that the Reverend was the werewolf, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess I was just caught up in like the look and feel of everything that when he has that dream, I was like, what the
What
heck?
the hell?
Yes, because like everyone in the church turns into werewolves and they're starting to it. I'm like, what is going on with this dude?
So at
And
that point, you still didn't know? You hadn't
I
figured it out?
was no, I didn't know. I was like, what is going on? Like, and then I'm like, okay, there's something's up. But no, they had me fooled for a while, and I like that it being him. Like
Hmm.
it's interesting,
Hmm.
I much rather that than some other movies have done this that I don't like than just some random character that means nothing to the rest of the
Right,
story.
right.
That's annoying. The fact that it's the person that you would think has the compassion and that would help,
Well, that most people would trust.
the most people would trust ends up being the villain. That was
Yep.
very interesting. Um, that was a good choice.
And then so after the boy's funeral and whatnot, people are at the bar and they're like, okay, the sheriff isn't doing anything. We're gonna take the matters into our own hands.
And I love how the meeting place is the bar.
Right, the
Like
meeting
that's
place is the
that's
bar.
almost like the church. Like that's where they're figuring out what to do.
So, then the dad comes in and he starts ridiculing the sheriff for trying to stop
Right.
the people from finding this monster, not really monster, but they think it's a
Hmm.
person that would do this. And what does he say? Something about vigilante justice or whatnot. And he's like, "You want to talk to me about
Yeah,
that?"
he's like, you can't take the law into your own hands,
Yeah,
and but you know what's cool? You can see both sides. Like if you were that kid's dad, burn the
absolutely.
freaking town down. We're
Correct.
figuring this out.
Hmm.
But if you're the sheriff, you're trying to maintain peace because it's
Hmm.
more important that thousands of people don't start going crazy than one or two deaths.
Correct. Right.
So you can see both sides of where they're coming
So,
at.
and then it's perfect that the Reverend tries to stop them because he knows that he's going to turn.
Yeah, and watching that scene later, it makes more sense. Like
Right.
he's,
Because he
yeah,
didn't like being a
he didn't,
werewolf.
yeah, he's starting
So
to fight, trying
he
to
was
fight
like,
it.
please don't do it, please don't go, because he knows that he's about to change.
Hmm.
And that scene, I love it. When they're out and you have all
Oh,
this,
the mist and all
yeah,
that?
you have the mist and whatnot, and it starts to get a little creepy, and
Yeah.
then he just starts
No, I like that. And you
he
don't
starts
really,
tearing them up.
and you know something's going to happen, and then you see kind of things come up and
Hmm.
people go
Hmm.
down. That was really well done.
Oh yeah, it's brutal too. I mean,
Hmm.
you see just enough to be like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, your imagination kind of takes over
Hmm.
because they're out in the middle of nowhere in the woods and people start getting pulled down and then it's like, what do you do?
Mm,
That was a very good scene as well. I liked that.
yep.
Um, so then after at
So
some
after the whole fog scene, that's
hmm
the Reverend has a dream about the wolves
Oh, that's when that
and
happens.
whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then after that, the next scene is the big silver bullet reveal
I
where
love that.
Uncle Red gives him his new um
His new wheelchair's juiced up.
it's not very green.
Yeah.
It wouldn't pass Biden's Green New Deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it uses lots of gasoline and
Yeah.
the emissions wouldn't pass emission standards, but it's awesome.
There's even a scene where he has to go get gas.
He
Remember we were laughing at
stops,
Mandalorian because none of them ever needed to gas up their
right.
packs.
He stops at a gas station in a
Yeah.
wheelchair. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yes. And I love the whole silver bullet thing because traditionally that's just the bullet that used to kill, but they named his go-kart slash wheelchair Silver Bullet. And I thought that was cool. That was a creative name for it. And he's having a good time. He's getting to drive it around. Gary Busey makes sure the parents aren't looking before he goes and drives it around. And that's what I mean. Like he's trying to give this kid a life without restriction. He's trying
Right.
to
Well,
let him live a little.
he even tells his sister, the mom, that, which is Gary Busey's sister. He's like,
Uh-huh.
"There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
Stop treating him like he's different. He's not different, and
Right.
all that good stuff." So yeah, so he has the big reveal, whatever. Well, that night,
Yeah.
he also gives him fireworks.
Uh-huh.
So that night, he sneaks out and goes for a little ride, goes out in the middle of the woods, and encounters the wolf.
That's my favorite scene.
That's your favorite scene?
Yes, I like the whole movie as a whole, but I love the music. I love he's going on a joyride, middle of the night. He finally feels alive.
It's scary to begin with,
Yeah,
and then oh God, there's a wolf or there's a
yeah.
creature.
But I like at first he's having fun and he's by himself and the bridge and the whole landscape is cool, but then it starts to get a little creepy. And I love the shots that you see of the wolf like in the background. You kind of see a little piece of him here, a piece there. But I love the shot where there's a shot where it's like on bushes and then you look real close and you see the ears and some of the eyes behind the bush. That was cool. I love that shot. And then, he's playing with the fireworks and then slowly it creeps up on him and he shoots him in the
Yeah.
eye. All that was fun. I
So
like
then
that.
that brings the next scene where after he gets home and he tells his sister about it,
Uh-huh.
well, now they got to look for, okay, who has
And
a hurt eye,
uh-huh.
basically. So she's going around collecting cans
And
and
she's like trying to
stuff,
look
and
at
she's looking at everybody's eyes. She goes in the barber shop and all that good stuff,
Yes.
and then the big
And I like how
reveal.
they did that because it's not like, oh, it's this person. They spent time trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
I feel like today they'd rush that to this person,
Yeah.
you know.
So
But
they took a little 5 minutes, little montage or whatever of
mm-hmm.
her going to different places, and lo and behold, you see the Reverend has an eye patch.
Yes.
Is that when you found out, or had you kind of had it figured out before
I
that?
was starting to have suspicions, but then I think that's when I completely knew for sure. So
Yeah.
that little
So
mystery
the
got me. I
reveal.
liked it. I liked it.
I
Um,
remember as a kid being like, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I can only imagine seeing this as a young kid. It's probably even more of a shock. So that was, and then he starts to look more sinister and the way he
Well, and
talks
he
and
starts to get real creepy, and he's like, can I help you or
yeah,
whatever?
almost a little, yeah, like with the girl, it was kind
Hmm.
of weird.
And as
Yeah.
she leaves, he realizes she found the bat, which was the owner of the bar's bat, the Peacemaker.
Right.
She sees it in his
In the
shed.
garage or shed, yeah.
So yeah, so they know it's him, but
Uh-huh.
then now they got to convince their uncle
Right.
that it's the Reverend. Hmm.
Yeah. And Gary Busey, Uncle Red, he wants to believe him.
Oh, and they send a note. They send a note to the Reverend that they know, and
Oh,
then
that's
so the
right.
Reverend tries to run him off the road.
That was a good scene
It's a good
too.
scene too. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, what is he gonna do? Because he gets kind of trapped in that little overpass
Hmm.
and then he's going looking for him, but then he yells at a neighbor that's on a tractor and that kind of scares the Reverend
Yeah,
away.
he runs by.
Yeah, but that was really interesting and then
And
Uh,
that's how they convinced Uncle Red was they had the paint transfer of the
on the
blue vehicle on
yes,
Silver
because
Bullet.
he scraped it on his
So then
car.
it's funny because Uncle Red is like, ah, this is crazy.
Yeah, he's like maybe psychos are just more active on a full moon.
Because I
When,
know I am. No.
yeah,
Yeah, no, Gary Busey's awesome. So,
yeah,
but then now he's got to go to the sheriff, or he goes to the sheriff and tells him all of this, and the sheriff is like, "Do you really believe this?" You know, that type
yeah,
of stuff. He's like, "No, but I think you should check up on it anyway."
yeah. And unfortunately, he
It
doesn't
doesn't
make
go
it
very
through
well.
the
Yeah.
checkup. Yeah. And the way he takes out the sheriff is pretty brutal because the sheriff sees it happening.
Hmm.
Like the sheriff's all his head's all
Well, he
messed
beats
up.
him with the bat, the peacemaker bat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was a brutal one, especially because the preacher's alive, or not the sheriff's alive while he's doing it, and
Hmm.
he's seeing it like, man, the kids were right. So that was pretty tough. And then after that, it kind of moves on into
Well, after
the
the sheriff gets killed, then they're like, okay, well now I guess that's whenever they realize they have to take matters into their own hands.
hmm
Now, Gary Busey still doesn't believe that it's a werewolf at this point, but they
right,
convince him to go get a silver bullet made. So he goes to a local guy who reloads ammo and whatnot.
right,
I think she has a cross necklace that's made out of silver and
uh-huh.
whatnot. And he goes and he makes the finest silver bullet he says he's ever made in his life, or something like that. It's
I
his
like
best work.
yes, and I like the excuse Gary Busey gives because he's not going to try to say, "Hey, there's a werewolf after us." He just says, "The kid's really into the Lone Ranger. Can you make him a silver bullet?"
Hmm.
Like I thought that was clever, instead of having to get into all the
But
what's going
doesn't
on.
I think he kind of understands. I think he kind of the bullet maker
Uh-huh.
doesn't really believe that though. Doesn't he kind of really think that?
Oh, maybe so.
I don't remember
But
that part again.
I liked that segue, where
I mean, we watched this movie before Halloween, okay? So it's not exactly fresh in our minds,
right.
but
But so yeah, then they have it and after, we kind of get towards the last act here, right?
yeah,
When they're in
yeah.
the house.
He convinces the mom and dad to go away for the weekend. He's gonna
hmm
watch them, and they're just gonna have a fun night, whatever.
Right.
But they are waiting for the wolf to come.
Right, because he knows who they are.
Hmm.
He knows they know his secret, and they're next on the list,
Yep.
for when the moon turns and stuff. And all the stuff with him breaking into the house and you not knowing when it's going to happen, and then you get pieces of him again. And then in the living room is where it's like, oh my gosh, you see it in all its glory.
Right. So Gary Busey actually sees him through the window, right?
Right. Before he comes in.
Before he comes in.
Right.
And then he turns off the power and all that good stuff. And yeah,
And he,
it's a good ending. It's a
yeah,
good
because he's
scene.
still having doubts and like he going back and forth, back and forth. And then when you finally get revealed, I
Yeah,
love
he
how they,
throws Gary Busey around the house, and
yeah,
then the bullet falls in the grate in
he
the
loses it.
AC vent. He
Yes.
has to get it, and yeah, it's a good tense little climax.
Yeah, especially since that's the only shot they have,
Right,
no
you have
pun
one
intended.
shot.
Yeah, and they finally get it and they
Doesn't the girl shoot him, or does Gary Busey shoot him?
that's a good question.
Wow,
I'm trying to think back. I
not very good. Average home theater.
I want to I know they both play a part in getting it. But I don't know who makes the final shot if it's him or her.
Wow.
It might be yeah, I don't know who makes the final shot, but they take him down and
And the transform, you see the reverse transformation.
which is really good
Yeah,
effect.
it's really good.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you know some of the background? Like, was it a puppet? Was it a man in a suit? Like,
No idea.
because today in some
Oh no, it
shots,
was a man in a suit.
okay,
Yes, it was a man in a suit.
because well, it looks best hiding it in the dark, like on the
Mm.
bridge scene. But
Well, what happened was, um, you were just reminded. I did look at the trivia. He would the actor. I want to say the preacher was in the suit a lot of the time. Wasn't able to move very well.
okay,
So they went with the decision of kind of like a Jaws.
yeah,
We'll just do a lot of POV shots and just have quick whatever where we don't have to use the effects of the werewolf very much.
I like that better,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know,
There's no doubt.
and
It makes it
and the close up
scarier.
on the eyes and stuff. But then seeing it all its glory, some of the shots, a little bit, but not as great nowadays. But it's still fun to look at. Like
Hmm.
when it's on screen, my eyes aren't. I
Yeah,
can't take
it's a
my
good
eyes off
looking
of it.
werewolf.
Yeah, it
It's a
looks
good
really
looking
cool,
werewolf.
especially the effect, with when he gets hit and kind of the blood and with the silver bullet. Like it looks really good. And
That reverse going back to a man
that
was
was really
really
good too.
good.
Yeah, because like you see the hair of the thing, and then
Hmm.
his human hair, and he's obviously passed out. Cat's out of the bag. We know it's him now. Gary Busey knows. Oh, that is because he sees him transform back, like you said. And
And in typical 80s fashion, the movie just ends.
yeah, I was gonna say it reminded me of Cujo there
So
because
how is,
that one ends quick too.
but at least that's a dog.
Yeah,
Okay, this is a man. You have a dead man with both eyes gone because they shoot him in the eye, in the other eye, right?
right.
And and he's naked and is the Reverend. How do you explain that? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do
Yeah,
you explain what happened? Oh, he was a werewolf, but he's changed back now.
I get. Yeah, I know. I guess you would just have to say he was trying to kill us and just leave the werewolf part out of it.
So we shot him in the eyeball while he was naked.
Well, yeah, I know that it is weird. Um, but it's kind of got that fable, that theme at the end, like the sister's like, and then, she has a voiceover again at the end, like I love my little brother, and it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like they
It
became
brought
a
them all closer
yeah,
together.
they brought them all closer together. Kind of like in Cujo, how at the end you get the idea that that family's going to be
Hmm.
better
Hmm.
than it was in the so. That's what I mean. Like, it's not really it's not bad as in like, it's got like a moral to it. Like, yeah, they go through all this bad stuff to be better in the end.
Well, Stephen King, I mean, I read a lot of his books.
Uh-huh.
He, and I know he's known as the king of horror and whatnot, even though most of his stories, I don't find them horror. Um, some terrible things happen in most of them, but
Yeah.
um, it he is all about character development. If you don't have good characters, you can't have a good story. And that's
Yeah.
how he approaches his writing. And I mean, that's why he's who he is. Um, it's all about characters. If you don't care about the characters, you're not going to care what happens to them.
Right. And that goes a long way because it's not like Saw 20 where you're just
Ugh,
seeing bodies ripped apart for no reason. And I think that gives horror a bad reputation,
absolutely,
you
absolutely.
know, because this has just as much heart. This has more heart
Well,
than some other stuff I've seen.
that brings it more to a niche
Yeah.
um uh what do you call it? Group of people to watch it. I mean, I don't watch that kind of stuff.
But yeah, there's some that do, but I feel like kind of outside looking in with horror, it has that
That
reputation.
stigma,
That is,
yeah,
yeah, it does. That it's just, oh, it's just about, people's heads flying off.
yeah.
And honestly, this has more heart than some of the family stuff I've seen,
Hmm.
so um
Cool.
I
Well,
was a fan. I was a fan of
yeah,
it.
I'm
Now,
glad.
was this like a huge movie at the time?
I think it did okay.
Okay.
I don't think it was, you know,
But it was in the theater and all
oh
that,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. It was a good release, but I don't think it was like this crazy box office success, huh?
Okay.
Let's see, it grossed 12 million, but um
Oh, I'm sure the budget was not
what
huge.
was the budget, you know?
Yeah,
Let's
that would be
see.
good to know because it was a modest film and I liked it. I appreciated it. But I never really, until you told me, I never really heard about it. You always hear about the other ones I was mentioning. So
You had heard of Christine before though, huh?
I trying to I had honestly, you always hear of like Carrie and Cujo I've heard of, but Christine and this one I kind of missed me. So um, you know.
Box office. It had a budget of 7 million and it made 12. So I
Okay.
mean it made money.
Made some money, and then I'm sure DVDs, Blu-rays,
Yeah, I mean the home market's
it,
always,
yeah. So after home,
especially
it
at this time,
definitely,
I mean, this is the 1985 was the king era of no pun intended, king was the big era of home video. That's when everything, people started renting
Home
and
video
all of
got
that
big,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It got big in the 80s, it got huge in the 90s.
I mean,
And
it
then
gets a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb. You people are crazy. I don't understand that. I mean, this movie is easily 7 at minimum.
yeah, it
It's
was
it's 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 a 7 minimum. I mean, I think it's that good.
I do too. I was impressed by it. Um,
This and Dog Soldiers. I keep saying Dog Soldiers. I love that movie. Those are my two favorite werewolf movies.
okay.
Silver Bullet and Dog Soldiers.
Well, I might have to check that one out because I don't know of Dog Soldiers. That's interesting.
We have work to do. We have lots of work to do. We don't need new releases. We just got to catch them up on the old stuff.
There you go. So until other things get better, we can stay over here.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have anything else?
No, it was a good time.
Yeah, Silver Bullet gets a thumbs up, baby. Watch it if you haven't. We just gave it all away, so hopefully you did. Um,
Or maybe it's been a while since you've seen it and you
yeah,
want to
revisit
revisit
it.
it.
I think it was on HBO Max. Is that how
It's
you
on
watched
HBO
it?
Max. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios.